In the last two classes, we saw certain circuits on arithmetic circuits design, right? We saw about adders, and then we saw how to design multipliers and barrel shifters and things like that. Today we are going to take up a new topic which is known as memory design, right? Now the semiconductor memory can be classified like this as shown in the table. First is volatile. Okay, when I say volatile, it means when the power supply is switched off, there is the contents whatever was there in the memory that gets erased. Okay, so it is only temporary holding of the data till the time the power supply is on. So the whatever RAMs we have in our CPUs, okay, whether it is SRAM or DRAM. Okay, SRAM stands excuse me, stands for static RAM, and DRAM stands for dynamic RAM. So when a microprocessor is running a program from the hard disk, some programs some portion of the program which is accessed very random very frequently is brought into these memories. Okay, so it is not stored there permanently. So as and when the power supply goes, that gets erased. Okay, so but this is like the address, it is not like sequentially you have to fetch data from these memory locations. You can address them randomly, like for example, you can pick up the data from say a 0 location 000, and then the next if the next instruction demands, you can pick up the data from say 1111 instead of going from 00012. Okay, so it is not sequential. So you can fetch the data, you can read the data or write the data anywhere. The corresponding address needs to be placed on the address bar, that's all. So that's the requirement as far as SRAM DRAM is concerned. That's why it's known as random access. Okay, non-random access means it like first in first out. So you need, this is like a stack, you put a data first and that comes out first. Okay, last in first out is like this is like a stack, like one being placed above the other. Okay, so the one you have placed on the top, that needs to be removed later. So these are all sequential. One which you have placed here in the bottom cannot be taken out. Okay, you have to take out one by one. Okay, so these are, then you could have a shift register or you have a content addressable memory. So we'll look into this also towards the end of the class. Okay, then you could have something known as non-volatile read-write memory. Non-volatile means even if the power supply is switched off, the program remains there. So we have an EPROMs and single EPROM, E square proms, that is EEPROMs or flash. Okay, we'll see what are these. Here the memory, even if it is not dependent on power supply, so you need to program it and you need to erase it separately. Okay, so even if the power supply, so all you are in a BIOS program. So once initially the computer is booted, so it needs to start from somewhere, right? So all those programs are written in the EPROMs. On the motherboard there would be an EPROM which will give it the self-biasing, self-test and biasing, basically BIOS setup programs will be written in these kind of things. Okay, you could have certain lookup tables and things like that also in EPROMs to make the CPU faster. So these are known as non-volatile. And then you could have ROMs. Look at these days these things are not available because it started off with, we will see the ROMs started off with masked, programmed and programmable ROMs, and now all the ROMs have been upgraded to EPROMs. So here you can write also. Okay, so that is the difference between ROM and an ROM and a read-write memory. Okay, out here. Now these are some definitions which we should know as we move forward. This is the read cycle. Okay, once a read instruction is given, right, a read enable signal is given, right, and from that point till that point, till the data on the data bus, the data is valid, available from the memory. So once you give the read signal, the memory is going to place the data. So from that point till the time the data is available onto the data bus, okay, that is known as read access. Okay, here again the next read cycle pulse is given here. So the memory takes a certain time from here to here to place the data. So that is known as read access time. And what is write access time? Similarly, when I give a write signal, I need to hold the data for some time for it to be written clearly into the memory. If I remove the data before the write access, then the correct data will not be replicated into the memory location, right? So that's why I need to hold this data constant after giving the write signal for the memory to accept this data and store it. Okay, so this much time needs to be given. So that is known as write access time. Okay. Now if you see the memory architecture, so you could have a lot of this is a word, right? Word means it has got 16 bits. So this entire thing is one data, you could call it as like it could be generally it can be an 8-bit data also, but most of the processors these days they use an 16-bit data. So or it could be more than up to 64-bit also. It will be known as a double word. Or so this entire thing is a single data. In one go all this data will be written, or here we are talking about a word, right? This entire data 16 bits of data, so there will be 16 individual cells out here. So in each of them, so the data bus also will be there will be 16 different physical lines available connecting each of the cell, okay, to the, so you will have 16 lines from each cell to the microprocessor, right, to read and write operations. Each line will carry 1 bit of information. That is in case of a word. Now if you have a double word memory, then accordingly 32 lines will be there. Okay, so the number of lines data lines depends on the width of the memory. Okay, so here we are talking about in terms of width. So now each of these words needs to be enabled. So there will be so many words, right? So each of these word needs to be enabled. So there has to be some signals coming to the words. Now for example, if I have a 1 megabyte of memory, so I can't have 1 megabyte lines coming from the microprocessor to the word to the memory, right? So there will be so many lines, 2 to the power of 20 lines which will be coming here. So instead of that, within the memory there will be one decoder. Now for a 1 megabyte of memory, 20 address lines is possible. Okay, only with just 20 address lines you will have a decoder. So here from the microprocessor's side, 20 address lines are coming. I'm just giving an example of 1 megabyte memory. So accordingly for higher memories, those many address lines will be required. So 20 lines are available here, and 2 to the power of 20 output lines will be available here, which will select the desired word. Okay, now so that is what the number of lines required will be log to n, where n is the number of words which is there. Okay, so if you use a decoder, you save a lot of wires connecting the microprocessor to the memory. Okay, so the decoder is there within the memory. Okay, now the problem with this structure is you have a high aspect ratio, that is the height is high, very much greater than the width out here. So you could have an array structured memory architecture where you can have some row decoders and you could have some column decoders. Okay, so some address lines are placed here and some address lines for decoding is placed here. So here on a particular row there could be multiple words. Okay, there is one word here, there is one word here. So when the row decoder gets activated, one particular row gets activated, and from that row, okay, one column will be picked up from the column decoder. So it is like instead of having the entire decoding only on the y axis you are having one set of column decoders in the x axis, which selects the particular column out here, right? And we will also see subsequently that the when we are sensing the data from the memory cell, there is a possibility that the content of the memory might get destroyed. So to prevent that, we have an sense amplifier, because if you connect an data line directly, the data lines are connecting the memory to the microprocessor. So it is a long drawn wire, so there could be lot of stay capacitance. So it may not be possible for the memory cell to drive such large capacitance. So in between we will have something known as sense amplifiers or the drivers. Okay, now how this gets decoded, that I will explain you further. So here, if you see here, there are several words I told. There could be several blocks also, and within block there could be several words. Okay, now these blocks also can be selected by a block address. Okay, one of the blocks can be selected. So now to select a particular word, when I place an address, now the entire address is split into three: row address, column address, and block address. Okay, so finally it gets decoded and the particular word gets selected. So the only advantage of doing like this is, first of all, the layout becomes a bit easy, and then only the see if that particular block, if it is selected, only that can be powered, the other can be powered off also. So we can save a lot of power in that case. Okay, so this thing will be absolutely clear out here. Okay, in this diagram, if you see here, this is the word line. Okay, once this is the word line which is coming here, right? So there will be several rows. So once one particular the row decoder decodes it, one particular line will go high. So this is known as the global word line. There will be several horizontal lines like this. Okay, this one particular line has been selected by the row decoder. Okay, once this particular line is selected, on this line you will find you have some block selectors. So some part of the address will select which block it is. Okay, so now you will find there is one block here and one block here. Okay, so now this particular block has been selected, and within the block again you have the column selects. Okay, the column selects. So within the blocks there are many words available. So now this has been selected. Now once this is selected, this entire local, this word line, okay, so there will be total 16 memory cells, all of them will get selected, right? So by having this kind of hierarchy, what we are achieving is, if you see here, this particular AND, if it is not activated, the block group, that entire there will be no power to the rest of the memory cells here. So we save upon a lot of power that way. Is it clear to all of you till here? Yeah, Ravi, Priyanka, is it okay? Anybody can just respond. Okay. Now if I see the design of an RAM, so now we are talking about SRAM. Okay, what we from here, right, we are talking about SRAM, and then we will talk about DRAM. So now we are talking about volatile memory. Volatile memory means a power supply will be required, and we can read data and you can write data. Okay, so we are now trying to understand how an SRAM and an DRAM works. Okay, can you explain the block group select again, once again? No problem. Okay, here if you see here, see this is address lines. Okay, if I have say 1 MB data, 1 MB memory, there will be 20 lines. Okay, so from the 20 lines, say I can give the LSBs out here, right, the first few LSBs. After that a few I can give it to column, and after that few I can give it to the block. Okay, now if I give to the block, okay, so these are the same 20 address lines have been given to 3 different kind of decoders. Okay, now once that is given, okay, suppose since this is someone set of seeing the first few bits, I can activate one of the word lines. Seeing the next few bits, I can activate the block, and seeing the final few bits, I can activate the a particular memory, right? Is it okay? Can you explain? This is like the same memory, like if I say 1 1 0 1 0 1 0, right? So if that 1 0 this particular line will be selected, then if I can take next few bits and select the block, right? So similar, this is just splitting the entire address into 3 different level. Okay, what is the, it is not, it is just the splitting that address into 3 different groups, from starting from the right or from the left. Okay, there is no criteria, just to ensure that that this the whole, and 2 things are achieved like this. If you have a structure like this, in the layout it won't be symmetrical. Okay, now here if you see here, this is one word, there is second word, third word. So in a single line there are several words, and the column selects particular column, or the and the block selects the particular word. So there will be several words placed here. So this entire layout becomes symmetrical. And the second advantage is only those blocks which are selected, they need to be given the power. So you will the entire chip need not be powered. Okay, so these are the advantages. Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, shift register is just shifting one data from the left side to if you could push a data bitwise from either from the left or from the right. Okay, whereas FIFO is a set of registers where you are putting data from one side and taking the data from the other side, right? Okay, so you could have an actually shift register. You can push the data from left hand side 8 times, then the data will come into the shift. Then you can take parallel out also. Okay, we will discuss that later on about the shift registers and FIFO. Okay, now if I talk about an 60 SRAM, so now we start with the first circuit, which is known as 6 transistor SRAM. This is very widely used. Okay, it is pretty stable and a preferred choice earlier, right? Okay. Even now the cache memories which is there inside the motherboard, and they also sometimes inside the processor itself or close to the processor also they use SRAMs, because they are pretty much faster than the dynamic RAMs. Okay, so how does it work? Now if you see here, there are 2 transistors, okay, 2 inverters which are cross coupled out here, right? So they are metastable. Metastable means they can either store this can be 0 or 1. It can't go in between because it is cross connected. So a small positive feedback is there. Okay, so if one inverter is 0, that is given as an if the output is given as an input to the next inverter, and that output is given as input. So this is known as bistable. It can remain stable either at 0 or 1. It cannot remain stable in between. Okay, so this is the basic cell, and then you have 2 transistors, N2 and N4, through which the data can be written, or we can read the data. So you generally have a bit and a bit bar lines. Okay, both the lines will be there. Now how to write data into this cell? Now suppose this is initially it is 0. Okay, the A is 0 and A bar is 1. Now if I have to write a data, so I will place 1 out here, and I will place 0 out here, right? So when I put an at the B bar 0 out here, okay, the charge available at this, okay, that starts getting discharges. So you have to pull down this node to 0. So once it starts getting whereas initially this is being being held high because this P2 transistor is on. Okay, so the moment you pull it down, okay, this low voltage will come here. Okay, and this will switch off N1, and once N1 is switched on off and P1 is switched on, so this node will go to high. So once this has gone high, it will come here and that will switch off P2. So this is a positive feedback kind of thing. Okay, so if you see this graph, okay, this is the word line going high. That means this N2 and N4 is being activated. Before that, parallelly what we are doing is we are placing the data. So this bit bar we are putting it as low. So this low output is going to pull this node to low. Okay, so that A bar is going low here, and that low A bar going low is activating A to go high. So this is the sequence of events which happens. Okay, now what is very important in an SRAM design is these transistors N2 and N4 have to be stronger than P1 and P2 because it has to pull it down to 0, right? So if it is not strong enough, then it will not be able to. So because initially this was 1 out here, right? And how is it 1? Because there was a 0 here, and that 0 is available here, and P2 is switched on. So if I have to pull this down to 0, okay, so this N4 should be able to work. It should work against P2 and pull this node to 0. Okay, once it starts going low, then obviously this low signal will come here and the signal will go high, and that will eventually switch off P2. But initially, to start the transition also, N4 and N2 have to be stronger than P1 and P2. Okay, so that is the important thing which is there in this highlighted in this slide. Is it okay with all of you? You have understood why N2 and N4 have to be stronger than P1 and P2. Okay, so if you see here now, now this is a read. Okay, in the read cycle, what do we do? In the read cycle is like how we read this SRAM is we place the data and we pre-charge this bit lines, okay, bit and bit bar lines to 1. Okay, so we give a small pre-charge and then we remove it. So this becomes a floating lines with VDD. Okay, so onto this bit and bit bar lines, both the lines are pre-charged with a small signal, okay, to VDD, no small duration pulse. So these lines get charged to VDD, and then once having done that, then we give the word pulse. We write the right. This is not the word, or the right signal goes high. So when that goes high, whichever suppose this is 0, so if in this case it is shown as A is 0 here. So what happens is whatever is this one particular one, since this is 1, this doesn't get affected, but I have a 0 here, so this bit line will be pulled to 0 out here, right? So it goes 0. Now while this current is going from here to here, you will find a small bump in A, that this voltage here will slightly increase and fall because the current is flowing like this. So there is an resistance here, so IR drop, so small increase in voltage will be noticed out here. Now here also we have to be careful that the size of N1, okay, must be much higher than N2 because it has to pull this node to 0, right? If N1 is very weak, it may not be able to pull this node to 0, and also this bump will go high because if it is very low, right, if this is very weak transistor, then the resistance will be high and a small current will increase the voltage out here, right, and then it can cross the noise margin, and that can change the data available in the SRAM. So that is the reason N1 has to be much stronger than N2. So if we summarize this, you will find that okay, these two transistors have to be weak, these have to be medium, and these two transistors have to be strong. Okay, this has to be weak because the data needs to be returned. So while writing, this transistor needs to overcome the power of these transistors to write the data. Similarly, while we are reading the data, so these two bit lines will be pre-charged to 1, and this transistor, one of these transistors will be one of the outputs A or A bar will be 0. So that needs to be so that particular corresponding line needs to be brought to 0. So you should have this these two bottom transistors, NMOS transistors, to be strong enough to bring that either B or bit or bit bar line to 0. So this is about the sizing of the SRAMs. Okay. So is it okay till here? Yeah, Dushant, is it okay? Okay. Now you have these bit and bit bar lines coming, right? Now, no, we generally don't connect the output from the memory cell, okay, these lines directly onto the bus bar, because these transistors, these are all densely packed and small transistors. If you start connecting a huge capacitance here, and if you do a read operation, then the data of this it might be 1 here. Okay, suppose this is 1 here, and you connect a huge capacitance here, so this might get discharged and while reading it, and the data here might get toggled. Okay, and it will take a lot of time also in case it needs to be discharged. So because if you connect a large capacitance, then the read and write the read time will become very high. So in fact, in between you have a better sense amplifiers which will drive the output lines faster, and these sense amplifiers need not be for each cell. Okay, so for the entire column it will be a single one. So because these bit lines will be connecting several ones, like in the vertical, right? Only those for whose word line gets activated, that gets connected to the bit line. So there is one cell on top of that also. So when that address of that particular cell is connected, that gets connected to the bit line. So there could be hundreds of such cells connected vertically, and only the selected one gets selected to the bit line. Similar, so the sense amplifier is also will be connected at the bottommost of that vertical column. So there is only one sense amplifier for the entire column. So one per bit line. So you can say there will be one sense amplifier per bit line. So if it is a word, there will be 16 sense amplifiers. Okay. So now if you see here, the bit lines are coming here, and this is again a crossed couple inverters, two inverters. So you have a sense and a signal out here, right? So initially, if the sense is off, sense whenever there is no read requirement, both these transistors will be off. So this doesn't work. So whenever you want to do a read operation, that is the time you have this sense amplifier, the bottom NMOS and the top NMOS being switched on, and you have the bit and bit lines coming here, right? So you have the positive feedback network here, and these transistors can be sized accordingly to drive large loads. So you will find this particular cell, this is also like a memory cell only. Okay, so this is going to come on to the bit lines, but this can be sized appropriately so that it can drive large loads. Okay, so there is no so instead of sizing each of those hundreds of cells with large transistors, we can only size the particular sense amplifier to be with large transistors, so that this is going to work parallelly with your with that particular cell which is selected out here, right? So this, now since this is a huge transistors with adequate current driving capability, so this will take care of the delay aspect. Okay, so this is one kind of configuration you can use out here. Okay, this is the second configuration. Here if you see here, the bit lines coming from the memory cells is separated from the output lines which gets connected to the data bus. Here if you see here, you have these two PMOS transistors. So when the sense enable signal is low, both these nodes are pre-charged to VDD, and when the sense signal goes high, you have the bit and bit bar lines coming here. So accordingly, these two inverters, they are again cross connected, they will replicate this data onto the V out lines. Okay, so here the bit lines are totally isolated with the output lines. Okay, so that the memory is not cell is not connected to the data bus bar at all out here. Okay, this is the input, this is the output. Here this cell get connected parallel to the memory cell. Okay, that is the only difference in these two configurations. Okay, is it okay till here? Okay. Okay, now these are known as the static RAMs, because there is no clock required out here, right? So this is an static. Now what is dynamic? Dynamic means and if you see here, the data will be stored in this cell as long as the power supply is required. If you see here, it is VDD out here, right? This top line is VDD and this is ground. So for this data to be stored here, VDD and ground should be there. Okay, so if you remove VDD, then this data will go. So as long as VDD is there, it will continue to hold charge. Okay, so this is that is why this is known as volatile. Okay, now this is dynamic RAM. Okay, now what is dynamic RAM? If you see here, okay, there is one. It just consists of 3 transistors. So whenever I want to write a data, so I'll give the write signal high. So this M1 transistor will get switched on. So whatever data, so now there is no bit and bit bar line. Okay, this is the write data and this is the read data. So whatever is the write data, whatever is available here, so accordingly this transistor will get charged to 1 or 0, because this is an NMOS. Obviously when it is writing 1, it cannot go to full VDD, it will be VDD minus VTH. Okay, so that little bit of drop will be there. Okay, now that will be stored here. Now how to read this data? Again here this bit line will be pre-charged. Okay, once it is pre-charged, whenever I have to read the data, I will be switching it on, right? So if I have written 1 out here, okay, then I will get this particular signal line will be brought to 0. So if I write 1 here, I get 0 here. So I can put one sense amplifier and invert the signal. Okay, and if I have written a 0, this will continue to remain 1 out here. Okay, so it is like what you write, you get the inverse of that here. So you need to use a sense amplifier. In the sense amplifier, it just depends from where you take V out and a V out bar, right? So in this case, since the read signal is inverted, you can swap this V out and V out bar. Okay, that's the only thing which is. So this also requires a sense amplifier ultimately. But the basic cell is only 1, 2, 3 here, whereas here the basic cell is 6 transistors. Here only 3 transistors are there. Okay, so can anyone tell me why are we calling this as a dynamic RAM and why are we calling that as an static RAM? Anybody? No idea? Okay, we are calling this as dynamic RAM. Yeah, charge is stored in charge is stored in a capacitor. Okay, there is no capacitor actually here. Okay, there is no capacitor here. CS means the source of these transistors and the gate of these transistors. So the intrinsic capacitor is used here, and this cannot be held for infinite time. Okay, so you will find that this particular transistor, it will get discharged, okay, after a certain time. Generally it takes milliseconds, but since we are operating in gigahertz frequency or even for a megahertz frequency, okay, it can hold charge. So this cannot, if you are going to keep this for 1 minute 2 minutes, then this charge will eventually get discharged, okay, through the high resistance, even if this is off. Okay, so actually when we say if the right signal is off, then this is how we say there is no path for this to get discharged. Okay, but that is an ideal case. Okay, but in all practical circuits, this will off also will have few mega ohms resistance, and eventually this will get a discharge. So this is known as the dynamic, where so these kind of resistors can be used like within the microprocessor. You have lot of registers, right, where data is being fetched. Okay, it is taken to the microprocessor, then the next instruction is being fetched. Temporarily you have so many registers, so those kind of registers, since the clock is at gigahertz or a few megahertz only, the data is stored only few nanoseconds or for few microseconds. So in those cases, this kind of register cells, they work very fine. Okay, so this is known as DRAM, right? So these DRAMs also okay, they are dynamic registers. Okay, this is the RAMs, like in today's most of the computers, the RAMs are all DDR RAMs, right? So they are all DRAMs, dynamic RAMs, right? So the advantage here is their packing density will be very high. So you have 16 GB DDR RAM, 32 GB DDR RAM, right? Even I think you have 64 GB RAMs. So because there are only 3 transistors, and this is also not there. So you can see it is, the packing density is very high. So but it will be slower than the SRAMs. Okay, so that is the only problem out here. So this is how these 3 transistor DRAM works. Okay, you could have a single transistor DRAM also. Okay, here if you see, this is the read-write transistor. Here an external capacitor is put out here, right? So this is not the stray parasitic capacitance. Okay, this is an CS, and MOS capacitance is put here. Okay, this needs to be fabricated. Now if you see here, during the write operation, this will be enabled and the charge will be stored here, and during the read operation, again this will be enabled. Okay, now when it is enabled here, okay, this is a kind of a destructive. Okay, so whatever is the charge available here, that will be get distributed with this. So there's no VDD out here, right? So even while you are charging, this doesn't get charged to full VDD because this is an NMOS transistor, so it will get charged to VDD minus VTH. Okay, that is one problem. And then when we are reading the operation, whatever is the charge available here, that gets equally shared between these two transistors. Okay, because they are now getting connected in parallel. But the total, if you see this bit line, once it is activated, okay, if it is 0, nothing would happen to this line. Okay, because this is not but if it is 1 out here, okay, this is not pre-charged to 1 in this particular case. Okay, so but if this is if this is 1 here, some charge gets transferred to this, so you will find this voltage is going slightly high. So the voltage swing is typically around 250 millivolt. Okay, so that much of increase in voltage will be there. So you need to use an sense amplifier which will amplify that difference. Okay, so even if these circuits, if you see between the bit and bit bar line, if there is some difference in bit voltage around 250 millivolt or 500 millivolt, okay, since they are cross coupled, so they will amplify that, and you will it will take wherever, if this is higher, then it will take it to full VDD, because and similarly if this is higher, it will take this to full VDD, because you have cross coupled inverters. So that kind of sense amplifiers works fine in this particular circuit also. So you need to use that kind of sense amplifier to detect that small change in voltage out here. Okay, so this is known as an one transistor DRAM cell. We need to keep if this is required to be stored, so we need to keep periodically refreshing this signal. Okay, so this is the disadvantage. Okay, so let me talk about tackle that one DRAM. Now explain with an example the working. Okay, now suppose I have to write a 1, okay, here. So I put an VDD to the bit line and I enable here. So this voltage will go to VDD minus VTH. Okay, now if VDD is 1.8 volt and VTH is 0.6, so this will get charged to up to 1.2 volt. Okay, so that is the voltage which will be held here. When I have to read, okay, I'll enable this transistor. If I enable this transistor, okay, now this is the bit line. Okay, on the bit line there will be some stray capacitance, right? So this bit line is 0. Now once I connect this read signal, so the same transistor will be switched on. So I'll have this CS coming in parallel to CB. Okay, so now since earlier it was only CS, it got charged to 1.2 volt. And now if I have one more bit line, okay, another capacitance, if CS and CB are both equal, then this voltage will straight away come to 0.6 volt, right? Because 1.2. Yeah, earlier is B. We don't pre-charge in a DRAM cell. Okay, unlike an static RAM cell. Okay, here we have a ground signal available. Okay, now this gets shared. Now if it is remaining 0, that means 0 was stored earlier. If the signal is going high, okay, that means a 1 was stored here. So that is how we read either 0 or 1 out here. Okay, so that is why okay, now the point out here is this signal cannot go to full VDD. Okay, two reasons. One, this capacitance is not charged to VDD, it is VDD minus VTH. Second, again the charge is being shared by these two transistors, right? So it cannot again go to full VDD. Okay, now two capacitances are in parallel, so it will not go to full VDD. So we require a small voltage swing will be there out here, which needs to be further amplified using an sense amplifier. See, when we whenever we want to write a data, okay, whenever we the microprocessor will say a write signal. Okay, so that signal will come here, and then you will place a data onto the from the microprocessor, you will place a data onto the bit line. Okay, when I say a read signal, again if you are using an one transistor DRAM, the read signal also will be placed on the same line, and now the from the microprocessor side, this will be connected to an input buffer, not to an output buffer, right? So whatever is the through a sense amplifier. Okay, so now it will read the data. So from the microprocessor side, that will take care of the whether it is to be. So while I am writing the data, the microprocessor will have an buffer which will drive this bit line, and then the read signal goes high. When I am reading the data, again the microprocessor signal and read signal also will be placed out here, but this will be connected to a sense amplifier, and from the microprocessor side you will have an input buffer. Okay, so that will be activated, so that will read the signal. So that's how the things work. Okay, now in an one transistor DRAM cell, these are some of the disadvantages. Now if you see here, this can have very high packing density. Okay, but there are certain disadvantages. So 1T requires a sense amplifier. Okay, so to and memory cells are single ended. Okay, so that is why they are slightly slow. There is no positive feedback here. Readout of an 1 is destructive. Like you need to after once you read the data, you need to refresh it. Okay, the data gets destroyed because the charge is shared now, so it will not remain 1 for the next. You can't do continuous reading 2 or 3 from the same cell because the voltage keeps getting dropped there. Okay, unlike 3T cell, one cell requires presence of an extra capacitance. Okay, here the extra capacitance is required. Yeah, for 3 this is not required extra, because this is just the straight gate capacitance and the drain capacitance of these capacitance. Okay, so whereas for 1T this is an extra capacitance which we need to put. So it says, and when writing a 1 into DRAM cell, the threshold voltage is lost. Okay, that is same for both the designs out here, right, for this design also. But then when we are reading it, okay, the entire voltage is available here. Rail to rail voltage will be available when we are reading, because this is pre-charged, so it will be VDD. And if suppose 1 is stored here, okay, this may not be full VDD, but still this M2 will be on, M3 will be on, so this will go to 0. So full rail to rail voltage is available in a 3T DRAM, whereas here full rail to rail voltage is not available. Okay, so that is one of the drawbacks of this circuit. Okay, now you could have an ROMs also, right? Now we are talking about, we talked about an SRAM and DRAM, and we are talking about these ROMs out here, and then we'll progress to these ROMs. Okay. Okay, this is ROM. Okay, so what a ROM basically does is, you have a decoder. So one of the rows gets activated. Okay, this is a decoder. So once I place the address out here, one of the rows will get activated, so from now if it is an 8-bit ROM, so I have 8 vertical lines. Okay, out here. So this is wired OR. Okay, so wherever I make an connection out here, okay, so an OR output will be available. Okay, so initially all these connections, these horizontal lines and the vertical lines are not connected, right? So while programming, okay, these ROMs, okay, wherever required, okay, so those places the connections will be made, and accordingly the output will be available. Okay, now what I am saying is, I'll just elaborate it in the next slide. Now, like suppose, okay, now this was the initial ROM. Now this is the input. Okay, so now when I say this address 10000 address 3, okay, so the address 3 means when I give this address as an 00011, so this particular line will be activated. Now if you see these vertical lines out here, okay, here I have made a short. Okay, here I have made a short, here I have made a short, here there is no short circuit, here also there is no short circuit. So when I give this particular address, what will be the output available here? Since there is a short here, so when I'm putting that address, line row number 3 will be activated high, right? So since there is a short here, I will get an A71. Here also I will get 1 here. No, here it is not, because all other rows are not not high, right? Only the particular address, okay, is selected. Only one of the rows is selected. Now when I am selecting this row 3, giving a particular address, so I will find 1 is available at A7, 0 is available at 86, 1 is available at 85, A4, 10. So this is the data which will be available. Is this thing okay? So what in the ROM is done is, you have a set of horizontal lines and you have an vertical lines. While initially programming the ROM, we make these connections or we don't make these connections. So accordingly, when you give an address, the data would change. Is this okay to everybody? Okay, so this is how a ROM works. Okay, now how to make these connections, right? So there are different techniques. Okay, so first is during metallization. Okay, so you have one set of lines horizontal placed in XY direction, and the other one is placed in the 90-degree. So these lines are there running orthogonally. So here if you have to make a connection, so there are two sets, metal 1 and metal 2 run, two different set of wires running. So wherever we in those junctions, wherever we want to make a connection, we will use a via. Okay, so this is known as wire. So this is known as an ROM. Okay, that means once it is fabricated, you can only read data, you can't write the data. Okay, so this is only one time. So if you see here, that is why it is known as a ROM. That is it can be fabricated like that. Okay, wherever we want these cross connections, there you put wires, and now now once it is fabricated, you can't rewrite the program, you can only read the data. Okay, so that is known as a ROM. Okay, now the other option which is available is, now you have these lines out here, you have these lines here. So initially while fabrication, you will have an thin wires connecting at all these junctions. Okay, and later on, once the chip is fabricated, so you will have an provision to burn the fuses by giving higher supply voltages. So wherever you don't want the connections, there you will burn off those fuse links. Okay, this is known as programmable ROM. Okay, so in that, this was known as just a ROM. Okay, then came the programmable ROM. Programmable means you can program it only once. Okay, once you have burnt this fuse, it cannot be again fabricated back. Okay, so the chip will come like this, and then at the user level, and you can program it only once. Okay, so the first programming you do, so wherever the connections are not required, that will be burnt. Okay, so now this is known as the programmable ROM. Okay, so this is one option which you can do. Okay, then the third option which is available is which is known as this is how things developed. Okay, then it came as electrically programmable ROM. Okay, now what is done out here is this is an floating gate. Okay, so this is an oxide. Within the oxide there is an polysilicon floating gate. Okay, so now what we do is, when we want to program this, initially we give an power supply to the drain VDD, and we give the source as ground. So some electrons will start flowing here, and we give a very high voltage at the control gate. Okay, now when these electrons are coming here, because of this high voltage which is available in the control, some of the electrons they become hot electrons, and they pierce through this oxide, and they get deposited out here in the floating gate. Okay, and then you remove the control high voltage at the control gate, and these electrons will get trapped here. Okay, so now what will these trapped electrons do is, when you give a normal control voltage, subsequently during normal operation, these electrons, since it is there are electrons which are negatively charged here, it will not allow channel formation, it will repel. Okay, so the threshold voltage will be much higher. So when you give a normal read signal out here, okay, this will continue to remain off. Okay, now if you have not programmed it initially, like if you have not given a high voltage and not trapped these electrons, in that case, if you give a normal VDD here, the channel will be formed, and this will work like a switch. Okay, but if you have programmed it earlier by giving a higher control voltage, and if you have trapped the electrons out here, then even if you give the control voltage here, then it will continue to remain off. Is this understood by all of you? Okay, how an EEPROM works? Okay, now now how to erase the data. Okay, the erasing of the data is done through by passing ultraviolet rays. Okay, so for each of the ROMs, you will have a small window out here, into which if you could pass ultraviolet rays, and then again you can program it back. Okay, now this is become multiple use. Okay, you can program it, erase it, again program it. Okay, so that is how this was known as EEPROM. Okay, and then came the double EEPROMs. Okay, this is electrically erasable PROMs. Okay, now here you don't require that ultraviolet rays and all. So initially again here also you have this double one floating gate out here. right, to charge it, now you give a high voltage out here, and which is known as generally VPP. You give VDD here, 0 here, and VPP here. VPP has to be much greater than VDD. These electrons will come here, and it will go into the floating gate, and it will get stored there. Okay, so now that transistor effectively becomes ineffective. Okay, that means once the charge is stored here, that will be continuously off. Okay, so when you give normal gate voltage, this transistor will continue to remain off. Now if you want to erase that data, what we do is now we give gate voltage is equal to 0, and on this drain side we give an high voltage, okay, positive voltage. Then these electrons which are trapped here, that will be pulled again away from that. Okay, so that is not electrically we are erasing the data back. Okay, so those electrons which are trapped here, that will be pulled back by giving gate voltage is equal to 0 and drain voltage is equal to VDD. Okay, by doing so we can erase. Now if you see here, closely, this is placed very close out here. The shape of this is like this. That is because when we want to erase the data, okay, while writing the data, okay, these electrons are being accelerated, so there is enough velocity, they will jump this barrier, right? So whereas while erasing it, there is no velocity here, but so the electric field has to be very, very strong, okay, to pull these electrons. So and because of that, very, very thin oxide is placed here. Okay, so that will enable these electrons to be pulled by placing an high voltage on the drain and 0 voltage at the drain. So that's how we can erase the data in this ROM. Okay, so that is about EROM. So now this is how to program the ROM is again like we programmed the ROM, okay, for different functions. Okay, wherever suppose I want an F2. Okay, this is the ABC, 3 inputs available here. So if I want an F2, these are the min terms required, right, for F0, F1 and F2. So I can make an truth table out here. So 0 0 0, F2 will be 0, F0 if you see here it is 1 1, 0 0 0 1 0. So this here for these corresponding min terms, okay, where all the connections requires to be made, so that can be made out here, right? So this is how the ROMs are generally programmed. So ROMs can be used for realizing logical functions also. Okay, so we can program the ROMs. You have an 3 to 8 decoder, and you can make the whatever. I have just given a small example. So you can program these connections, and accordingly take this as an each individual line as an function. Okay, so for what input combinations I want F1 to be high, so those particular these are all what min terms corresponding to the various input lines. So wherever I make those connections, so corresponding to those min terms, F2 will be high. So I can use ROMs also to realize Boolean functions also, right? Okay, this is again one more example out here where the input is there and the square of the input is available out here, right? We need to, so we can use an ROM as a lookup table out here, like for 0 0 0 0 the output is 0 0, for 0 0 1 the output is 1, for 0 1 0 the output is that is 2, this is 4, and this is 3, the output is 9 out here. So you can have, so these are the inputs and these are the outputs. Now if you see, so this, how to realize this using an ROM is, if you see here, if you make an inputs and outputs, if you see here A0 and B0 is the same out here, B0 is always 0, and B0 and A0 is the same thing, right? So you can straight away take an B0, B1 as 0, and B0 and A0 is the same, and then you can use an ROM to realize these functions, right? So the way it is done here, right, the corresponding connections can be made. Okay, now the thing is, if you have a lookup table like this using an ROM, okay, then now so it saves time for the processor to compute such so many times you can have such kind of lookup tables. Okay, if you have a complex function, you need not keep telling the processor to compute it every time. So there is one option of using EPROMs as lookup tables, and whenever I want the square, it just goes and looks up into the lookup table and gets the required result. Okay, so that kind of things also can be done out here. Okay, so that was programming the ROM. Okay, we'll take an 10 minutes break out here, and then we'll continue with the class. Okay, so it's 11:34, so 11:44 we'll start the class. Okay, this is how a MOS or ROM is organized. If you see here, these are the various word lines out here, right? And these are the various transistors. Now if you have a programmed transistor, the floating gate transistor, then at that place actually you can consider there is no transistor there, because even if you give the word signal high, okay, that transistor will not be switched on because you have trapped electrons into the floating gate. So I can in the schematic I can say there is no transistor there out there. Okay, so wherever there is actually what I am doing is, by pre-programming, like if I go back here, okay, wherever I am pre-programming and I am trapping charges out here, that transistor remains completely off during normal. Like when I give a read operation, I give only 5 volt, right? When I want to trap electrons, I am giving around 20 volts. So normal operation I am giving 5 volt. Once the electron is trapped here, okay, 5 volt will see that this transistor will remain off, because there is electrons trapped here which will not allow formation of channel here, right? So that is what is shown here in this particular circuit. Wherever there is no transistor, that means they have been programmed for 0. Okay, that means those transistors is not there. Now when I give the word line 0, this particular one horizontal line will be activated. So this is the VDD line. Okay, so this transistor will be switched on, and you will find on this line, okay, on bit 1 line 1 will be available, whereas on bit line 0, okay, there is no transistor here, so it will continue to remain 0 out here. This will also 0 here, this will also be 0. So when I give a word line 0 is activated, okay, that depending on the address decoder, output from the address decoder, I will have 0 1 0 0 output, right? Whereas if I activate this particular line, I have one transistor here. Again, this is VDD line, through this it is available here, so I will have a 1 out here, 1 0 0 1. If I activate this particular line, I have VDD here, I will have a 0 1 here. So this is how various data will be available for various write operations. Okay, so this is known as the MOS or ROM. Okay, it or means that either see the way it is connected here. If this is connected or this is connected, right? If anyone goes high, this line will be activated. Okay, that is why it is known as OR. But it doesn't happen that both of them come together. Okay, because from the decoder only one line is activated. It is just that the way it is organized, it is known as OR ROM. And you have something known as pull down loads also. That is because to just to ensure that these lines are 0, it is not floating. Okay, so a small voltage is given here, so all these lines will be a perfect 0 out here, whereas when this word line is selected, okay, this is a strong transistor, so it will ensure that VDD is available here. Okay, even if so this is just a small current given, so that if there is no transistor connected here, this line remains perfect 0. So that is how a MOS or ROM looks like. Now you could have a MOS NOR ROM also. Now here the only way the transistors are connected is slightly different. If you see here, this is a transistor here. Okay, now this is an pull-up device. Okay, so this is connected out here. So if all these word lines are now in this particular case, there is transistor at each of the word lines. Okay, so So if all the word lines are any of the word line goes high, okay, now from here you will find it is connected to ground. Okay, so this node will be pulled to 0. So this will also be on, this will be also on. So this is an ratioed logic. So this has to be much stronger than this. Okay, so this pull up, it's an if all the transistors now in this particular case, if I take the second here, now if the first word is connected, this line will go to 0. If the second word is connected, there is no transistor here, right? And this is already programmed for pre-programmed for 0. So this line will continue to remain 1, right? Whereas this bit line will be pulled to 0 by this transistor. Again, this bit line will be pulled to 0. Whereas if I activate this particular word line, then I don't have transistors here. So this line will be pulled to 0 here because of this transistor and the ground line out here. And similarly, this particular line also will be pulled to 0 here. So wherever there is no transistor, that will continue to remain 1. Okay, so only wherever the transistors are connected, that will be pulled to 0. So this is known as NOR configuration. Okay, you could have an NAND configuration also. Here it is actually the decoder is have to be active low. Okay, so suppose it is like if I have a word line this to be I have 1 and 1 out here, right? So if I have 1 here and 1 here, then you will find that it is generally all the lines are high. Okay, all the lines will be high. It is active low decoder. Okay, so you will find these bit lines will be all will be so if in this case also, so if you see here, this bit line will be, it's because this is normally on, so this will be 0. Here there is no transistor at all connected for these 4. This will be permanently be at an 0. All this will be at 0. So whenever one particular word line is selected, okay, so that particular line will go on active low. That means it will go 0. Then this particular transistor, now if I am selecting a word 0, then this transistor will go off and this will go off, and this particular line, these two corresponding lines will now go high. Okay, so the decoder has to be active low. Like this is the decoder output, right? So whenever I select 0 0, this particular row 1 will go 0. Okay, so this is active low. So that is the difference out here. Similarly, for normal operation, all these transistors are lines are high. Whenever W3 is selected, this will go low. If this goes low, this transistor gets switched off. If it gets switched off, this will be pulled too high by this transistor. Okay, so it works it is the only difference with NOR ROM is the decoder has to be active low out here. Okay, so this is how a MOS NAND ROM works. Okay, now this is another much better option which is available here. You will find here there is a continuous current flowing in these circuits, right? Because it is a ratioed logic. This is also on, and then this is also on. So you will find some current is being continuously flowing from VDD to ground. So to avoid that, we can what we can do is we can pre-charge these lines with a small pre-charge pulse. Okay, so these are the PMOS transistors. You give a small pre-charge pulse. So once you have given the pre-charge pulse, all these lines will get pre-charged to 1, and then when you connect the particular word line, when you select the particular word line, okay, that will be discharged through these transistors. So if W0 is selected, so here there is no connection, so this will continue to remain high, whereas here you have a transistor, so that will go to 0. This will remain high, this will remain high. So I will have a 1 0 1 1 output. Similarly, if I select this particular line, okay, this will be discharged to 0 out here, and this will also be discharged to 0 here. So I will have a 0 1 1 0. So depending on the word line, I get different data as per what I have programmed out here. So this is known as pre-charged row. Now to make the row decoders, right? So what I can have is suppose it is an 8-bit decoder, right? So normally how can you implement a decoder? You can have an 8-bit AND gate, and you can have like for W0 I can give A bar, A0 bar, A1 bar, for this WL0, I can give A0 on all these inputs, right? And similarly for here I can give this. So what? So to implement the entire thing, I need 8 inverters and 256 NAND gates. Okay, 256 NAND gates. If I use NAND gates, it will give me the active low signal out here. Right now, each of these NAND gates have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 input, right? So this is very high fan in. Similarly, you can do it with NOR gate. So to decrease the fan in, what I can use is I can have it in 2 stages out here. Now, if I do, like if you see here, this is, I have used a few, I have clubbed 2 inputs out here. So when I give A0, A0 both 0, A0 and A1 both 0, this particular line will be activated. So that is coming here, right? Okay, so that is connected out here, right? And if this is also 0, right, and A2 and A3 next 2 bits, so I'll have this also coming here. So this particular NAND gate will be activated. These 2 lines are for the next, just to simplify, it's only 2 bits are shown here, A3, A4. Similarly, you have A4, A5 and A6 and A7 also. So from there also these 2 lines also will get activated. So when everything is 0, this particular NAND gate will get activated. So because this is connected here 0, 0, from here also 0, 0 is connected here. Now if I go to the next NAND gate, here 0, 1 is connected here, right? If you see here, this particular NAND gate, this will give an high when the input is 0, 1, right? So now then in the next address, when it is placed, this NAND gate will be activated, whereas here it is 0, 0 only coming here, right? So now again these 2 lines also will be activated by the next 2. Only 2 are shown here, another 2 will be there, so these will get activated. Now if you see here, you will require, again you will require 256 for an 8 bit, you will require 256 NAND gates, but they are only 4 input NAND gates, okay, rather than 8 input NAND gates here. So that is how you can have these kind of structures also, right? Okay, now this is again simple pass transistor row decoders, where just 1 second. Yeah, okay, now this is known as an row decoder. So now if you see here, these lines are, word lines are pre-charged, and now if you have an A0, okay, and A1 both are zeros, then you will find that this word line 0, right? So A0 is 0, this transistor is switched off, this also is switched off, so you will find this is going to remain high, okay, when A0 and A1 both are 0. In that case, what happens to these? If you see here, okay, these transistor, this will be switched on out here, because A0 is 0. So this line, okay, this line is, which is pre-charged, will get connected to ground, so this will be 0 here. And similarly, this is an A1 out here. So this line also, so this W1 gets 0. What about W2? If you see here, W2 is also, again you have this particular transistor is A0, and this is an A1 bar. So through A1 bar, this particular line will be discharged, okay. So at any given point, for various input combinations, only one of the lines will be will retain the VDD, which is pre-charged. So you are pre-charging all these lines to VDD, and depending on the input combination, okay, for 0, 0, one would remain here, others will go low, because one of these transistors will be connecting these lines to the ground. So you can have, similarly you could have an NAND operation also here, okay. Here what happens is, you are pre-charging this line again through these transistors. This is the pre-charge line, okay, through here. And now for 0, 0, if you see here, 0, 0, this will be 1 and this will be 1, so this line gets discharged to the ground here. So these are known as row decoders, okay. So you could have a tree based column decoder also. This is what the like a normal pass transistor logic, right? If you have an 0 0, like if you find this transistor is on because this is A bar, and then it comes out here, okay, and then A1 bar is also on, so it will come here, and this is available here. So now VDD will come here for 0 0 through this path, it will be available here, right? Now if A0 is 1, then and A1 is 0, then it will come through this path, and now this transistor will be switched on, it will be available here, right? Now A0 is 0 and A1 is 1, then it will come through this path and it will be available here, and if both are 1s, it will come from here, it will be available here. So these kind of decoders also can be designed. The disadvantage with this is it will have a lot of total number of transistors you will save, but it will have a delay, okay, because one is stacked over the other, okay. So here if you see here, if you go to the previous these topologies, a single transistor is responsible for discharging these lines here, right? Now here now to transmit this one, it has to pass through multiple transistors, okay. So this will have greater delays, okay. So that is one. Now you have something known as programmable logic arrays, okay. What it is done is through these are again the kind of memories which can be programmed. So there is an AND plane and there is an OR plane. So you can program both the AND plane and the OR plane, okay. So that will be understood in the next slide. So now suppose these are the horizontal lines in which VDD is generally available, right? So these are the connections which needs to be programmed, okay. Now programmed means either you make you put a transistor out here, or you don't put a transistor. If you have put a transistor out here, that means whenever the read signal is going high, a connection will be made here, okay. So wherever these arrows are shown, that means all this for all these memories, these interconnections are programmable, right? So now here if you see, these are the places where the connections are making. Now if I see this particular line, okay, here I have made one connection out here, okay. That means when this line is going low, A bar is going low, this will become so you will have A bar is going high, then this line will become high. This will continue to remain high. If A bar is not high, then there will be a ground available here. So whatever is voltage available here, through the current will flow like this, and this will go to 0 here. So this line will remain high only if A bar is high. Similarly, you have made a connection here also. So both A bar and B bar has to be high for this line to continue to remain high. If one of them goes low, then it will be 0 out here, and then this voltage will get dropped across this resistance. So this line is known as A bar B bar line, that is, it is AND. So this is known as an AND plane, that is why this is known as an AND plane. So this is A bar and a B bar, okay. Similarly, wherever I have made a connections out here and I have made a connection out here, so this is C bar line and this is A bar line, A line, right? This is A line. So this comes out to be AC bar. Similarly, if I have made connection only here, so this line is B. So this is the output of the AND plane. Yes, okay. Now I have, this is known as the OR plane. In the OR plane, if I make I can make connections wherever I require. So all those connections, techniques of connections we have read, right? So there PROM, EPROM and all. So these are all those connections which are made. Now if you make these connections here, now F0 will be high either if this line is going high or if this line is going high. So I can say finally F0 will be A bar B bar or AC bar, okay. Similarly, F1 will be AC bar or B, because this is a B, okay. So similarly, various functions can be done. So for small implementing a small VLSI circuits, for example, I have to just program a washing machine, okay. There are only a few inputs available, right? So I don't have to use a big controller. Now, or I need not because there are few inputs and few outputs. One compressor, maybe few lights which needs to be switched on, that's all. And there are some temperature input or door open input, and few inputs are available, right? In those cases, it is not wise to use a microcontroller. You can just use a small PLA which will do the necessary function. So you can program the PLA accordingly, right? So now this is another example of making two functions out here. If you see here x1, x2, x3, so the connection is made here and a connection is made here. So this will be x1 plus x2, right? And this is the x1 plus x2. And for f1, connection is made here, so you have x1 and one more connection is made here. So this is x1 and x3 bar. So x1 and x3 bar, again you will find a connection is made here. So for f1, so these three connections are made here. So it is x1 bar, x2 bar and x3. So x1 bar, x2 bar and x3. Similarly, f2 is also generated. So these kind of memory devices are also available. Okay, so this is similarly you can have a PAL. Okay, PAL is nothing but you have the programming here in the AND plane as well as in the OR plane. In PAL you don't have the programming in the OR plane, that is fixed by the manufacturer itself. Okay, so that makes it very, very compact. Okay, so the flexibility is lost. Like these connections are already made. Okay, you can only program these connections. Okay, so the flexibility is lost, but then this becomes a compact chip. Okay, so you will find these connections are can be programmed out here. So accordingly, different functions can be realized out here. Okay, so this is known as PAL out here, right? Now if you see here, this is another example out here in which you have an PAL. So this is already hardware. You can only program these crosses. Now this output of the first hardwired thing is available as input line also. Okay, so if you see here, this W is available here also, right? So what it does is it enables some flexibility in our design. So if I take an example out here, now this is W, this is X, this is Y. Now if you see here, I can write okay, let me just I can write a W and a Y in terms of W also. So if you see here, this Y is a big expression out here, W is a small expression. So this is a subset out here. So I can replace these two with W, right? So when I'm implementing an PAL out here, if I can use that W also as an input for programming a Y. So I'll share these slides. They are pretty simple. You can go through that. Okay, so this is how this input programming is available with you. This is already hardwired by the manufacturer. Okay, but what the manufacturer has done is, for the first function, he has provided two vertical lines also, which you can program this vertical first W by putting connections out here, and subsequently use these vertical lines as a function for doing the other functions also. So that gives you an additional flexibility. Okay, so I can go through these slides also, right? And then we have something known as flash storage. Okay, flash storage, or we generally call it as SSD also these days. Okay, so you can have two types of flash storages. One is NAND and one is NOR. Okay, so we'll see the difference between these two. Okay, now if you see here, again the basic cell is same as that of an EEPROM. Okay, if I go back, where did we discussed an EEPROM? Here, right? We had two gates, right? So here, if you we gave a high voltage so that the electrons gets trapped here. Okay, so the same concept is used here. Okay, So the only difference out here is, okay, this is very thin gate oxides, so you don't require that high voltage to write a data, okay, and similarly to erase a data also you don't require high voltages with so you can read and write data easily out here. Only thing is, it is not a hot carrier, but it is like it is known as punching through the gate oxide. Okay, so these gate oxides are very thin. It is also works in the almost same philosophy as that of an double EEPROM. Only thing is, the only difference out here is these oxide layers are very thin. So when you given when you want to make this disable this particular transistor, you give a slightly high voltage G, and then you give a voltage out here, then okay, then these electrons will come from here, and they will just tunnel through and get trapped in this, and then when you give a nominal voltage here, then this will not switch on at all. Okay, so this will become like a disabled transistor if you program it to 0. So these transistors can be pre-programmed to 0. If you don't program it, it will work like a normal transistor. You a gate voltage, it will just get connected. But if you pre-program it, that means if you give a higher voltage here, then if you trap electrons here, then this will be permanently switched off for normal operation. Okay, again you have to pull these electrons back when you are doing an erase operation. Okay, so this is how an flash storage cell works. So you can have two configurations here. This is known as the NOR configuration. This is known as the NAND configuration. Now if you see in the NOR, this is the bit line. So in the NOR configuration, each bit line through a transistor is connected to an source line. Okay, so now suppose I give a VDD in the source line. If this word line is connected, this bit line will go high. If this word line is connected, this will go to high. So I can give source line as VDD and select the appropriate word line. So accordingly the bit line will go on a high, or if there is no transistor, okay, transistor will be there, but if you have programmed it for 0 by trapping electrons here, in that case, even if you give the gate voltage, okay, this will be in the off condition, and hence this bit line will continue to remain 0. Okay, so that is how this works. Here the way the transistors are connected, they are in connected is all in series here. Now again here also the problem out here is not the problem, you can say that this is widely used because this consumes a very less, it is a high density packing, because you will find that there is only one source line here. Here you will find the source line needs to be given to each cell out here. Here the source line is given only to the last transistor here. So here the packing density is very high. So this is very widely used. Okay, now if you see here in this, all this normally all these transistors will be on. Okay, so whenever you select one particular word line, okay, then that will go off. So in that case, the bit line will not be charged to 1. So this works in the as an active low configuration. So that's all. Okay, so that is how an NAND and NOR, we'll see details in the next slide, so it will become clear. Now this is a NOR, right? All these are the various bit lines, and there have been transistors which have been connected out here, and these are all the different ground lines. Okay, for each word there will be a different ground line. Now if I have to program one particular cell, right, if I have to program this particular cell, what I do is I give a high voltage here, okay, to this particular word line, and then I am now this particular word has to be saved with 0 1 1 0, right? So I give VDD here, I give 0 0 0 here. So when I give a high voltage out here, right, in this particular cell, okay, since I have an VDD given here,
right? Okay, so this electrons will jump here, and this gate, this transistor will now become inactive because electrons get trapped into the, so here this transistor will not be there while normal operation. Okay, that is how I program this transistor. I give an high voltage, so all this so wherever I require that electrons to be trapped on those bit lines, I will give a VDD. Okay, here I want only this particular cell, this particular transistor to be disabled for normal routine operation, so hence I have given VDD here. So now these electrons will jump here, and it will get deposited on the floating gate, and this transistor will get disabled here when I am giving a VPP as high. Okay, so this is how this works. Okay, this flash memory storage will work. Okay, this is like writing data. Now to erase data, what we do is similarly for reading data is you give normal VDD here and read the data from here, right? To erase the data, what you do is, now again you are giving a VDD out here, okay, to all these gates, and either you put a 0 here or you keep it open here, right? So whatever is that trapped voltage, and you are giving a high voltage to the drain of these transistors, okay, to the drain or to the source of these transistors, you give VPP here. So this will pull all the electrons which are trapped. Now in one go, all these words and all these transistors and data will be destroyed. Okay, whatever was available in the charge on the floating gate, that will be pulled by this positive voltage which is given here. So they will all become clear now. Now again, this is how you can erase the data. Okay, now you can now the advantages of this NOR flash is, and they are fast to program. Okay, and tunneling is slower. However, there is a low density packing. Okay, that is the only issue with NOR flash, and hence that is not used, because each of the rows require a separate line, this ground line, whereas in the NAND you will see that and a single line is required. So if I see the NAND flash out here, now if you see here, these are all stacked one above the other, right? In this case, if I have to write a data, I give an high voltage out here, right? If I give a high voltage out here, right, in these cells, if you see here, it is VPP. So there will be no current flowing here, whereas there is a current which is flowing in this, because you have given a VDD and ground here. So when I give VPP, this particular cell will get deactivated. That means I will write a 0 here, permanent 0 here, because this will trap the electrons out here, because now in these vertical columns there is no current flowing here. In this there is an current which is flowing, and you have given a VPP here the currents don't get this doesn't get affected, because you are giving only a VDD here. So if you see here, whichever cell you need to be written, accordingly the voltages can be by changing these voltages on the top and the bottom and the voltages which is given here. VPP will be much higher than VDD. Okay, so you can accordingly, now if you see here, here it is VPP, here it is VDD, and here it is ground here. Now the current will flow like this, okay, and then it will get trapped here in this particular cell. So that is how you write a data into the flash data, and this is how you erase the data. Now for erasing the data also, if you see here, it is 0 is given here, right, and here it is VPP is given. So here 0 0 0 0, so that no current will flow here. In this particular cell you are giving 0 here and you are giving VPP here. So now these electrons will be pulled, and then you can erase the data in this cell. So that is how. So here the advantage of the NOR, you will see here there is only one ground and one VDD. Here parallelly every word required one line here. So this is a high packing density. Okay, but this is slower because one is stacked over here. So the NAND flash is slower, NOR flash is faster, but the NAND it is a high packing density, and hence mostly we use an NAND flash. Okay, This is the last concept which we are going to learn today, which is known as content addressable memory. Okay, what it does is, it is normal SRAM. You can write a data into the memory cell. Okay, subsequently I can instead of again putting that address and getting a data, I can do something different also. Okay, I can put the data onto the data bar, and then I can find out what is the address. Okay, and in that particular case, all the memory addresses will be activated at one go, right? So instead of selecting one particular, it is like you put the data line, and then you should be able to read which memory has got that particular data. Okay, so this kind of thing is also done generally in network switching devices. Okay, so how it works is, if you see here, okay, now suppose this cell is written, initially I have written 1 in this particular cell. Okay, now so I will activate this word line, and I have written 1 here. So where I have this cell, it is 1, where I have cell bar, it is 0 out here. Okay, now I have returned the data. Fine, finish. After that, I am not activating the word line, but I am giving the data into the bit line. Now I am giving a 1 here. Okay, and I am giving 0 out here, right? So this is a 1, right? This transistor will be on, whereas initially I have written 1 here, so this will be 0 here, so this will be 0. So this transistor is on, but this is off, right? Similarly, this is off, this is on, so the match line will be okay, so the match line will be high. That means now I am writing bit is equal to 1. Initially also the bit was 1, and hence the match line will be high. If I take the next case, suppose initially this was a 0. Okay, initially I have written a 0. Now I am not writing the word line, I am not selecting any particular memory, but I am placing here 1. But initially I had written 0 here. What happens in that case? So this transistor will be switched on, and since I have written 0 initially, cell bar will be 1. So this transistor will be on. So the match will be low in this case, right? So only when, if the previous data and the new data, previously what is written here and now what is the data which I am putting on the bus bar, if they match, okay, only then the match signal will be high. Okay, so that is how a CAM works. So you can have a full CAM cell organization here. So once for matching, what we do is we leave the word line low. That means this word line is not activated. Okay, when we are doing the matching. Okay, we are only putting data on the bit lines. You put the place the data on the bit lines. Okay, pre-charge the match lines. Okay, so these match lines are pre-charged. Okay, and then you evaluate it. So if the previous data and the present data are both are 1, okay, then that match line will remain 1. But if those data are different, then the match line will go low. So again, it is like each cell will generate one match line. Okay, now initially you have an row decoder. Now you can have an encoder to get back the address. Like you have decoder, right? What does a decoder does? From a set of address, it generates the particular row. Now you can do the exactly opposite. From the rows you can generate the address. So here you use a decoder. Now you need to use an encoder. Okay, now this is just a weak PMOS and an NMOS to generate match and inversion of match. Okay, so this miss will, if the match is high out here, so this transistor will be switched on and this will go low. So this is actually a match bar, okay, which is known as miss also. So you can generate this match and miss out here, and you can get the address. Okay, so this is a different kind of technique where you have memories where you are writing some data into the memory cells, and subsequently you are not looking for the address, you are putting that data and seeing the address. Okay, now these are got in telecommunication and all. There are certain applications like that where say several users are there, and you have given them initially you have in various address locations, you have given the user IDs. Okay, now and corresponding those address, those signals are being routed to those addresses. So you have a table like that. Subsequently, if somebody wants to know, he wants to send a signal to the user. Okay, so he doesn't know the address. In that case, the user ID will be placed on the data bar, on the data bus. Okay, and the address corresponding to that user ID you can fetch, right? So this is mostly these kind of circuits are used in telecommunication. Okay, so with that we'll stop it here. I think we just have 5 minutes left. Now I know I have gone pretty fast here in this particular circuit, in this particular class, but if you have any doubts, feel free to get in touch with me. Okay.